Welcome to EP3, where we make energy modeling easy. I'm Karen Walkerman, the founder and lead developer at EP3. In this tutorial, I'll take you through our EP3 and eQuest integration. We'll talk about how to create an eQuest-friendly EP3 model. We'll look at how to create or select your eQuest HVAC system source file. We'll merge the EP3 and eQuest file. And I'll show you how to use EP3 to manage your EEMs in eQuest. So the first thing we need to do is we need to pull up the EP3 to eQuest toolbar. So once you're in SketchUp, and right now I just have a blank model open in SketchUp and I have EP3 loaded. We can see our EP3 toolbar here. So I'll go to View, Toolbars, and then scroll down and you'll see this EP3 to eQuest toolbar. And I'll click on that. And that's just a single button with the eQuest logo. And I'm going to dock it up there. So this is a new file. And the first thing you need to do to enable the eQuest merge is to click on this button. And this will say Enable eQuest merge for this file. And I will hit yes. And now, because this is a new file, I'm going to start a file. I'm going to use the wizard. Now, it's important if you're creating a file using the wizard to enable this eQuest merge first. And the reason is you'll see that when we open the wizard, we'll have a couple more options than normal. This is when it comes to constructions. So we have this eQuest library under constructions. The reason for this is that eQuest has some limitations on the types of materials that you can have within eQuest. They have some limitations on minimum thickness that Energy Plus does not have. So we encourage you to use the eQuest libraries. Otherwise, you may have some compatibility issues when you load your program, load your file into eQuest. So let's just do a very basic model with EP3. So let's select a couple of office occupancy types. We could do an office enclosed and maybe an office corridor. Let's select constructions from Climate Zone 5, and I'm doing the eQuest construction set. So we'll say non-residential. We won't do any surface hot water or HVAC systems. The eQuest and EP3 merge does not port over surface hot water and HVAC systems. We'll talk about those systems later. It does create internal loads, constructions, schedules, and building geometry properties. So let's go to building geometry properties and let's just let's do 2 floors. And let's make the core space corridor. And then I'm going to modify the building geometry a little bit in detailed mode. So we'll click next. And I'm just going to accept what I have here and say finish. Let's see. Non-residential, below grade. Unheated slab construction. The underground floor construction is also another one where there's a difference between the type of construction we're using for Energy Plus simulations and eQuest simulations. So that's another reason that it's important to select the eQuest option prior to going through the wizard. Okay, so here we have our basic building, and I'd like to just very quickly do a couple of things that are difficult to do in eQuest with building geometry in eQuest. So first of all, let's go into our roof. We'll select our roof. I'm going to right click and say remove unnecessary edges. And this gives me, when I go into the roof, and I'll hide my exterior geometry, this just gives me a very SketchUp-y clean surface here. And now I can do some SketchUp-y things to create a more complex roof shape. So give it a pitched roof, and then maybe we'll even give it a odd sort of a dormer. I mean, this makes kind of no sense in reality, but I just want to do something that would be really hard to do in eQuest. And maybe we have a couple of these weird looking fins. Oops, graphics card. Okay, let's see. Let's just make a couple of these. And then we will regenerate the walls for our top floor here. So I'm going to select the top floor here, and I'll give this a ceiling height that's tall enough to reach the peak. So let's just call it 7 meters. So if we have a set ceiling height, the walls will project up either until they hit a new surface or until they hit that ceiling height. So if you have a pitched roof with odd shape, you want to make sure that your ceiling height is set to be at least as tall as that top layer. Okay, so now I've changed that, and I can say create my interior walls. So you can see those interior walls just got projected up to that funky roof surface, and now I'll do the exterior walls and those as well. And if we mouse over, we can see that our space boundaries, all of our surfaces are figured out for us. Now, it looks like there might be one surface here. Yeah, these surfaces. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay, we may need to. There we go. Okay, so I had right-clicked and on this roof, so I can select the roof here, and then when it's selected, I can right-click and say intersect with the building. So if some of those intersections aren't completely correct, just say intersect with the building, and that will ensure that those intersections are correct. So now we have some interesting building geometry that would be very difficult to create in eQuest. We did it in a few minutes with EP3. We could even add some windows on this roof, whatever you want to do. Okay, so the next step now is we need to have an eQuest file that has some HVAC systems. Also, as a reminder, when we came through the wizard, we had the wizard has created these space and zone templates that have all of our internal loads. We have our schedule selected. So we already have our office corridor and office enclosed space types, including internal loads, all figured out. So we don't need to do anything with that. We also have our constructions have been fully defined coming out of the wizard. Our materials are fully defined. So we can now just go straight to our HVAC systems. So I'm going to open eQuest here. And I have a recent project, which is System Setup, which is used as an example file for setting up this sort of EP3 and eQuest merge. So if you're an EP3 user, you can request this file from us and we'll send it to you so you can follow along with this tutorial. So I'm just going to open it. This file was created using the eQuest wizard, and you can create an eQuest file with very, very basic building geometry. So the building geometry in this file is just like a 2-story, 2-zone building, super, super basic, just comes straight out of the wizard, nothing fancy going on. And we just created on creating some HVAC systems. So you can see we have something called PTAC template and VAV template. So one of the things we did do was we went in and we renamed our systems so that the names were recognizable outside of this eQuest user interface. So the PTAC template has a DX cooling coil and a gas-fired furnace. The VAV template also has a DX cooling coil and furnace, but this is one of these things where it's designed to be connected to multiple zones. And then we also have our individual zone distribution And we can see some of the features down here of the zone distribution. So we have our eQuest file, but you can also create a new eQuest file and define your HVAC systems using a combination of the wizard and the detailed mode. You only need one system of each type. So here's what it looks like when we merge it with EP3. Okay, so now I'm going to click on my eQuest button again. So once you've activated, allow eQuest in EP3, when you click on this button again, it's going to ask you first to open a source INP file. So I'm going to navigate to this system setup. I'll go to the system setup.inp. So INP is the DO2 file. PD2 is the eQuest file. So we will work in EP3 with the INP file. So this eQuest export folder, and here is system setup.inp. So I'll click OK. And then it reads the file, and it's going to bring up this dialog box for me. So right up here, it's telling me it's merging it with this particular eQuest file. And I have the option to change the INP file, and this button we'll get into in a later tutorial. But there are a couple of things here. So we have a tab for system distribution. So if we look at the PTAC template, we have a choice. So we can do one system per zone, one system per building, or one system per floor. And with the VAV template, we can do the same. So one system per building, one per floor, or one per zone. So with the PTAC template, I'm going to leave it at one system per zone. And with VAV, let's do one per floor. Okay, so now I can select which template I want to use for each EP3 zone. So let's do PTACs for these corridors. And we can use the VAV template for each office space. So actually, if we do the office space first, say select all, and then do corridor here. And then we have which zone template do we want to use for each EP3 zone. So we'll do the same thing. So we'll do the VAV zone template for the enclosed office spaces and the PTAC for the corridors. And there's also an option here. So when duplicate objects are found in the eQuest file, what is it going to do? It's going to maintain the eQuest values. So this would be if you had a more complex eQuest file, perhaps you want to merge your EP3 file with, maybe this is a couple steps down the iteration. You've already merged the EP3 file with an eQuest file. You made some modifications in eQuest, and now you want to re-merge it with the original EP3 file. So you may have some schedules or constructions with the same names. And so this is asking, what do you want to do in that case? Do you want to use the EP3 version? Do you want to use the eQuest version? We shouldn't have that issue, but I will say maintain EP3 values. Okay, so now we can just close this out. And to create that INP file, that eQuest file, I'm going to say simulate export. We're just going to select or confirm the outside boundary condition for materials. I'll select the global model, and I have this additional option here, which is merge with eQuest. So now it will ask me to save a file location, and I'll say eQuest export, and let's just create a new folder. So with all things EP3, when we import a file or export a file, we give you a report that lets you know what happened during that translation and whether there was anything that we had trouble translating or anything we didn't understand. So here, when we create our eQuest INP file, we do the same thing. So there are a couple of errors that we want to take a look at. So the first few are related to schedules. So there are a couple schedules that are highlighted here: activity schedule and a few zone control type schedules. And what EP3 is telling us is that the schedule type could not be determined. And so we're just assigning fraction as default. There are a couple of differences in schedule types between EP3 Energy Plus and eQuest. And so if we're not sure, we'll just assume a fractional type. And generally that works for things in eQuest. Down at the bottom, I'm not going to worry about these schedule errors. I'm also pretty sure that these particular schedules are not used so much in eQuest. For the last two, we have an error about some infiltration, and it's telling me that the calculation method flow per exterior area is not recognized as a calculation method for eQuest. So this one is actually concerning because if we don't have a valid infiltration calculation method, there won't be any infiltration, and infiltration has quite a large energy use in buildings. So let's make sure that we change the infiltration calculation method to be something that eQuest will understand. So let's go to our user dialog here, and we're going to look at our space templates because that is where the infiltration is generally stored. And I'm going to open the infiltration tab, and we can see, yes, the calculation method is flow per exterior area. And that's the same for both of these objects. I want to make changes to actually both of these space templates. So I'm going to select both of them, and I will change to air changes per hour, which is recognized by eQuest. Because I have both selected, it's going to ask me whether I want to make this change for all selected objects, and I will click yes. Now I need to set an air change per hour rate. So I'll tab over here. I'm going to get rid of this value, which is actually not correct at all. But let's change the air changes per hour to 0.1 air changes per hour. And that's it. That's all I need to do. I can just validate that those values are correct in both. And yes, 0.1 and air changes per hour as a calculation method. So now let's try this merge again. I'll go to export. I'll select my EEM. I just have one at the moment, and I'll click merge with eQuest. So we'll go to eQuest export. Reminder here that when you're saving, if you just have an underscore as the file name, EP3 will automatically give your file the default EEM name. So here it's a global model. I'll click save. eQuest file is generated, and we can see those two errors went away. So now I can go over to eQuest, and I'm still looking at my system setup model that we looked at earlier, but now I'll say open, and I'm going to look at that eQuest export and tutorial folder. And I also, very important, I need to change the file type from PD2, which is the eQuest format, to INP, which is the DO2 format. So EP3 is actually creating a DO2 file format, and then we bring that into eQuest. So I'll click my global.imp and hit open. I do not want to save changes to my previous project. And here I can set my project name, project file, weather data, and any user library data I want to select, and I'll hit OK. And there we go. It's actually come in with no errors whatsoever. So I can inspect my file now. I can look at my 3D geometry. So here's our funny roof shape. We can look at internal loads. So by space, we'll take a look at the spreadsheet view. So we can see we have equipment, infiltration, and lighting. One thing to note, the schedule here is called off infiltration, which may sound like an off schedule. One thing about eQuest is that we're limited to the length of the object names. So you'll notice that this space name is shorter than the name in EP3. And we're trying to shorten that name in a way where it is still human readable. In certain cases, the name will be too long and we'll just assign a completely random string. And in that case, you will see that show up in this error report file. It will tell you which objects had a name change to something completely random. And then you can either manually change it in EP3 to something shorter, or you can change it in eQuest. I would recommend making your changes in EP3. Because in a couple minutes, I will show you how to use EP3 to manage your efficiency measures. And then you can really do a lot of work in EP3 and just merge files with eQuest for your HVAC system modeling. Okay, so back in eQuest, take a look at those HVAC systems. So remember we had those VAV systems and we selected one per floor. So here we have this bottom floor VAV system. And highlighted, we can look at the zone locations. So we have it assigned to these office perimeter zones on the bottom floor. And we have a top floor VAV system, so it's assigned to the perimeter zones on the top floor. And for the corridors, we had selected one per zone. So we have one for this bottom floor office corridor and one for the top floor office corridor. Okay, so let's use an efficiency measure now to manage some options in eQuest. Okay, so I'm going to add an efficiency measure. And let's just call this, what did we have for that single zone system? We have, actually they were PTACs. I think in the original, it was called PTACs. So let's see. Let's go PTAC, hit OK. Now I can switch to my PTAC efficiency measure. I'm not actually going to change anything in EP3 other than I'll go to my eQuest merge. I'm still using system setup. I have these templates. Everything is sort of inherited right now from the previous EEM. But instead, what I can do is select all on this PTAC. And if I change back to my global model and I look at this, I can see that my original system selection is still appropriate for the global model. So now we're going to export this PTAC EEM and hit merge with eQuest. And again, I'll do save it in my folder here, hit save. Now we have eQuest files generated. And we have a couple of those schedule errors again for PTAC, but we're not going to worry about it. So before I actually import the PTAC model, I just want to do this last step and simulate my global baseline. So we have some reports, and we can look at detailed reports as well, but we can see some energy use that looks appropriate for a cold climate. All right, so let's go to open. Go to eQuest export, select INP, take a look at PTAC. Same weather data file, hit OK. And there we go. Again, came in without any BDL errors, and we can see we have one PTAC for each zone. And again, I can simulate. And we have our results. So I think you can see that using the EP3 efficiency measures can be a very good way to take a look at different options. And we can also we have these previous project runs. We can look at our global and PTAC models if we want to look at both of them. And just a little nice comparison there. We can also use EP3 to manage internal loads, EEMs, or building envelope EEMs. So if I wanted to do a building envelope EEM, I could say increased insulation. I'll switch to my increased insulation EEM. And then let's look at our materials. Let's say material, no mass. So for exterior wall, we could say R25 in IP units, and roof, let's go R40 in IP units, and maybe we'll change up our windows a little bit as well. So let's see, what's our default? Fixed fenestration construction as our default fenestration, so let's change that one. Fixed fenestration glazing, let's make it 0.25 and a 0.3, so a heat gain coefficient. Okay, so now I can, right now increased insulation is applied to the global model. So if we export our increased insulation EEM, merge with eQuest. So actually, let's just take a look at the eQuest settings for increased insulation before we move forward. We have these global model settings for increased insulation. So let's merge increased insulation with eQuest. Go to our eQuest export tutorial folder, hit save. It's generated my files. And now let's open it here. eQuest export, IMP file, increased insulation. So if we take a look at in our building shell, and we have our construction, we have our exterior wall construction, and let's see, let's find our, oh, this is EL1 constructions. These are from the original system model. So these CZ5, the climate zone 5, are the constructions we're looking for. So we're looking for CZ5, non-residential exterior wall construction insulation. And here is our R value of 25 that we just changed. And same thing with the roof. We have an R value of 40. So let's simulate that. And here we go. And we can click back and forth with our global model, and we can see that there's some changes in our overall energy use due to our increased insulation. So that concludes the EP3 and eQuest tutorial. I hope you found that useful, and being able to manage EEMs in one file with EP3 and using EP3 to manage all the changes to building geometry and schedules as the building project progresses from schematic design all the way through to construction or even calibration models. This will really enhance your eQuest workflow.